Part number 57B, Hook, Large, Loaded, from the 1930s blue and gold era. Hi and welcome back. This week I shot myself in the foot with this build. I'd wanted an easy build, nothing too difficult. There are times when it's definitely a challenge to build and write two models and scripts in the same week. And one that when my mother has passed away, and I need to get a job, in the real sense of the word, that I might not be able to achieve. Only time will tell for that. But the challenge of writing has become something that I really love, which, considering I'm dyslexic, might sound a bit strange, as this should be something that I shouldn't enjoy due to the very nature of the challenge. But maybe that's part of the enjoyment. The fact that I was told growing up that I wouldn't be able to do tasks like this. My career's advice was that of a road sweeper, because intellectually that was all I was capable of achieving. But as I sit here with various web pages open, my copy of Modern Railway Administration, the GWR Handbook from 1933, and the Railways of Consett and North West Durham open, I might be mistaken by my teachers of old as somebody studying. I think the challenge of creating the story out of the model is wonderful. And like I said, these scripts are becoming more enjoyable as the channel grows. So, this script's planned out. I have my opening, as always, then delving into the history of British railway wagon design and discussing the cattle or livestock wagon in particular. Discussing the rules, regulations and laws for transporting livestock in the British railway network and the change of policy that saw the decline of the traffic apart from in Scotland. And as I start to write it, I realise there's another story to be told here as well, one more general to life, but maybe as equally interesting and important. And that's, why did I choose this model? And what it has to do with the inner child still inside me. And the importance of forcing yourself to face challenging situations because they keep you alive and make you grow. I am in my 50s and the youngest of 4 children. My father was an analytic chemist with maths as his passion in life. Everything logical, everything has a place, and by modern standards probably scored quite highly on the autistic scale. Hell, most of my family does in one way or another. But he also didn't do interaction with any great ease at all, with a firm belief that if he could do it, then as children we should be able to. Forgetting that he'd gone to university, studied for years, read widely of the type of books that we didn't even understand the words, let alone grasp what was being said in them as a child. A good example of his logic was when he decided that I needed to learn to tell the time. For most dyslexics, we find the digital clock face the easiest to read. It's straightforward. It tells you the time. My father's choice was probably the worst clock in the house to teach me on. A small carriage clock. And he starts by explaining the basics of the clock. Little hand, big hand. Oh yes, the big hand is your 5 times table. Great, cheers Dad. Now we're adding maths to this problem. But Daddy, what does IV mean? Yes, this carriage clock is in Roman numerals. I fled the room when my mother arrived, and the argument broke out about my stupidity and not understanding a simple task like converting Roman numerals into Arabic numbers and then multiplying by 5. This leads to my mother. She was a botanist, with chemistry as her second love. Her view on life was that of a great experiment, including us children. She observed and interacted when needed. My eldest sister was a genius at school. She didn't need to study greatly. To her, it all made sense. She can read a book by skimming the middle of a page, and she knows what the other words will be. Her greatest achievement is marrying a man who earns 6 figures a year. I haven't seen her in 5 years. I haven't talked to her in 4. She doesn't do difficult. And as our parents' health declined, it became difficult, a challenge. My brother is again the type that educational life was easy. He runs a business that trains accountants all over the world. Growing up, he was my hero, the person I wanted to be. My next sister is a teacher, an English teacher, and like me, she is dyslexic. But she's managed to overcome the challenges that are set by dyslexia, and through sheer hard work got to where she is now. And she's one of the motivational people who has helped me get through life. Growing up, we hated each other. I grew up being compared to my elder sister and brother by both my parents and teachers. We all went to the same schools. They went to university, and I was told that I wouldn't hack it. And to be honest, I think I would have dropped out of university at that point in my life. And that, to me, would have been not only a failure in both my eyes and that of my father, but it would have been a waste of time and resources. By the time I was 20, I had run my first business, left home, albeit only for a year or so, learned to drive and got my first car, all funded by the money I'd earned myself. And I would say that my life has never been that of an easy option. I've worked in jobs that are, to say the least, challenging. I've learnt that the challenging life is all too often the more rewarding one. The easy route might just be that, easy. But in the long run, when you need the ability to cope with difficult parts that life will throw at you, has it helped you grow the ability to cope? And what does any of this have to do with Meccano? Frank Hornby was working to an end goal with Meccano. He was trying to encourage the young mind through education and engineering. And I believe he achieved it. The balance is just about perfect. Most models are just the right amount of complexity to challenge the mind, even this build. And enough reward to help build the self-esteem that you can do better. And these are vital for the young mind to develop into a balanced person. That's a bit that my parents got wrong with me, and they got a lot right, a lot that I'm very grateful for. But I was left with a feeling of being worthless. When compared to my siblings, as a result, I've placed myself at times in harm's way, not caring about the result of my actions because my self-worth, by my values, was so low. My daughter has helped me revalue what my self-worth is. But sat with my father one night in an accident and emergency waiting room to be seen after suffering a stroke was a moment of realising that maybe I was okay as his child. When the moment of the second stroke hit and 20 years of training kicked in, being able to get assistance to him and not panic as the nurses and doctors stabilised him, I was able to talk to him calmly, letting him know that family was by his side. And getting that balance right is not easy. It is a thing I think all parents get wrong to some level or another. And while this build was a cop-out, I wanted an easy build this day, it has also been a moment of some thought. I'm not the person the inner child still trapped in my head thinks he is, all because I was not what my father wanted or teachers expected of me. I know I've helped people to be in better places, both through my career and voluntary work. But what I do gain out of these builds, and the challenge of script writing, is peace. Some of the builds are a challenge, to be sure, but they're also an escape. The stories of the people behind the builds are a source of inspiration for me. For all that I find reading difficult, the joy of learning new knowledge far outweighs the frustration that I feel at times. I believe that Frank Hornby hit on the perfect project toy for the mind, both young and old, and that many construction toys help to build on that is just perfect. But with this build, there's a darker side. The cattle truck has a link to our history in the 20th century that shows the worst of this. Many were used for the mass deportation of people to their death aboard such railway rolling stock as this, and not just by the Nazi Party, but also in Soviet Russia, and ironically post-World War II, where many Germans were deported back to Germany. At least their journey was not a death sentence. So who would have thought that a simple build has so much involved in it?